Russia is holding naval drills in areas of the Pacific Ocean, as well as in the Baltic and Caspian Seas, at a scale that has not been seen since the end of the Soviet era.
Защищающая себя позиция. Это политика, буквально нападения. Так почему же нам не объединить свои потенциалы?
Putin has said tonight that the US and European countries will be directly participating in Moscow's conflict with Ukraine if they lift restrictions on Kyiv using long-range missiles to strike Russian territory. He said this would change the nature of the conflict and mean the US and other NATO countries were fighting with Russia.
I want to share with you the biggest reason that I stepped out of the presidential race to endorse Donald Trump. It's an issue so big that many people don't even want to look at it. And I'm talking about the slide toward nuclear war. You might remember back in the day when Dick Cheney and Donald Rumsfeld and Paul Wolfowitz and all those other guys were pushing for war in Iraq, war in Syria, war in Libya, war in Iran, and full spectrum U.S. military domination across the globe. These people were known as the neocons, and they have now taken over the Democratic Party. Right now, they're the ones who are pushing for maximum confrontation with Russia. You have any idea how dangerous that is? Russia is the world's largest nuclear power. Right now, our country is providing weapons trainings and targeting information for Ukraine to strike deep into Russian territory with both infantry and with missiles. How would our country react if, say, Russia had bases on the Mexican border and was aiding Mexican armed forces to strike oil refineries and towns and nuclear power plants in Texas? If Russia gets desperate, they will use nuclear weapons, and Vladimir Putin has made this clear. That's the game that President Biden and the foreign policy establishment have been playing. They're gambling the future of our planet, and for what? For nothing. The endless wars of the neocons are bankrupting our nation. They're making us less safe at home and less safe abroad. It used to be that the Republicans were even more belligerent than the Democrats. Some of them still are, but not Donald Trump. I've had extensive conversations with him and his team. He understands the danger. He sees through the neocons now. He's going to de-escalate with Russia, and he's going to cancel the neocons' plans for wars with China and Iran too. I take him at his word, and I'm also going to keep him to his word.
Folks, this ain't good. This is not good at all. This ratcheting and this escalation with this mess over in the Ukraine, it just keeps getting pushed and pushed and pushed and pushed. And those fools in Washington, D.C., the military-industrial congressional complex pushing this, is going to push Russia and Vladimir Putin to the point that they have to do something. If you're not following what's going on, they're on the verge of giving these idiots approval to launch deeper strikes into Russia. And as you just saw in the video, imagine if some country, or Mexico, was lobbing missiles into Texas. And then all of a sudden the missiles, instead of hitting around the Texas border, all of a sudden they just keep creeping north, right? Getting closer and closer to Washington, D.C. At what point do the gloves come off, right? And that's where Moscow and Vladimir Putin, that's where they're at right now. How close are you going to let these idiots get and do substantial damage before you wipe them off the face of the planet? I don't understand their logic. Well, I do understand their logic. It's all about the military-industrial congressional complex. They have this idiot over there, Captain Funnybeard, has the face of the brand over there. We're sending all this money and material, and most of it they're siphoning off and just stealing. The stuff that they can sell, they're going to sell. So a very small percentage of it, gets lobbed towards Russia. But Captain Funnybeard, he's not looking out for the best interests of his people. Because if he were, he would not be poking that bear to the point that they're about to do something crazy. Whether it's just a small yield thermonuclear weapon dropped in the middle of Kiev or on the outskirts or whatever they're going to do, they're about to get knocked out. And many of you bought into this from day one. A lot of people call me a traitor because I said the Russians are not my enemy. I don't perceive them to be an enemy personally, nor an enemy of the United States. If I had to do business with the Russians or the Ukrainians, I'd much rather do business with Russians. The Ukrainians are a bunch of fucking criminals, just siphoning off all that money we send over there. Or you just keep sending more like fools, just absolute fools. But now we are allowing Captain Funnybeard and his crew over there, the merry band of thieves, if they start hitting targets deeper inside Russia, they're about to get knocked the fuck out. Why would you keep poking your next door neighbor who has more nuclear weapons than any country on the face of the earth, and they're right next door to you? Makes no fucking sense. I'm not saying roll over and die and give up and surrender on day one. But at some point, if they're about to wipe your ass off the face of the planet, it's probably good to like pull back the reins, slow things down for a minute. Hey, wait a minute, let's talk about this, right? But that's not where the direction of things are going. Everybody's concerned about this now. I'm concerned about it. How many warnings is Putin going to give these fools before he drops some type of nuke on their head? It just ends this. Now you got a swath of land that's uninhabitable for what, the next 100 years? What he's going to do, I don't know, but he's not playing anymore. You've pushed him both politically, strategically, militarily into a corner where there has to be some decisive action. And that's what's about to happen unless somebody pulls back the reins. Somebody slows this thing down and puts the brakes on what's about to go down.
What's been called the most dangerous conflict no one is talking about, the rising tensions between China and the Philippines over disputed waters in the South China Sea. China's military is taking forceful steps, aggressive steps to confront Filipino forces, and there is potential for the U.S. military to be pulled in as an ally of the Philippines. 60 Minutes correspondent Cecilia Vega got a first-hand look at how dangerous this conflict could become.
When we boarded the Philippine Coast Guard ship Cape Engano last month, it was supposed to be for a routine mission resupplying ships and stations in the South China Sea. But in the middle of our first night, sirens raged. Crew members rushed between decks.
It's 4 in the morning. We've all been sound asleep. This alarm just went on the ship. We were told to wake up and put our life jackets on because we've just been rammed by a Chinese boat.
There was confusion, fear. Our team was told to stay inside the cabin for safety. It was unclear if we would take on water or if the Chinese would try to force their way on board. Philippine crew members prepared for that possibility and stood by the hatch holding clubs in case they had to fend off the Chinese. This cell phone video taken by the Filipinos shows the moment just after impact. The Chinese Coast Guard ship, 269 feet long and nearly twice the size of the Cape Engano, jammed into the Philippines' starboard quarter, the rear right side of the ship. When the Chinese pulled away, the Filipinos found a 3.5-foot hole. An officer told us we were lucky the damage was above the waterline.
Because ultimately what could happen
The U.S. is bound by treaty to get involved if there is an armed attack on the Philippines from this treaty that goes back years. And no one wants a clash of world powers, superpowers, which is what it would end up being between China and the U.S. out there. So this is a really important issue. The world has been so much focused on China and Taiwan.
Yeah.
The issue that's heating up much more so right now is China and the Philippines, and that U.S. and potential involvement is really dangerous.
We'll get more in your piece, but they just rammed you and then retreated.
Yeah, no. Well, when the sun came up, Gail, and we went to the top deck, we could see for the first time we were surrounded by 14 Chinese ships. 14. Fully surrounded, and there was a standoff, and it's unclear whether we could leave or not.
Okay, look, now this opinion is not going to be popular. But I think there's an overconfidence among everybody of the capabilities of the United States military. Okay? Do we have the most powerful military in the world? Yes, we do. But can that military fight everybody at the same time? The answer is no. Just look at when we were running Iraq and Afghanistan at the same time. We had a hard enough time keeping up with everything that had to go on just to beat up a bunch of farmers running around. Beating up farmers in places like Afghanistan, Vietnam, Iraq is not the same as going against real militaries, such as the Russian military and the Chinese military. So here you are, you're reading these articles how Russia and China are basically banding together against the West out of, well, it's strategic, but also they have no choice. But here you go with this crap getting escalated over in the Ukraine. What the hell are you going to do? How are you going to respond if Russia just puts this knockout blow on them? How do you respond to that? What do you do then? All these geniuses up there playing checkers, they're not playing chess apparently. You're pushing them to do something. Now he does something. Now what's your reaction? Now you are digging us deeper and deeper and deeper. What are you going to do then? Oh, by the way, you have Chinese Coast Guard ships ramming Philippine vessels almost on a daily basis now, right out here in the West Philippine Sea, where you have a formal treaty to come to their aid in these incidents. We've already had a dude lose a thumb out there. They've stolen some weapons. They're ramming ships. Now they've intentionally rammed a ship with U.S. citizens on board. At any point, they could formally request that the treaty be invoked. Now you have the U.S. Navy escorting these ships. Then what happens? Just an incident waiting to happen where rounds start flying. There's just too many flashpoints that if you're engaged in both of these, engaged to the hilt in both of these flashpoints, the resources are spread too thin to be effective. That's my opinion. In my opinion, I don't consider the Russians the enemy. We need to dial that shit down on that border over there. Okay, remove Captain Funnybeard. His reign is over. Take him from the brand, okay? Consider him just like, what's that dude's name? Jared from Subway, right? You're out of there, okay? And dial this shit down. The Chinese, on the other hand, the reason I consider them the world's enemy is because we're witnessing expansionism. Okay, their country's way up here, Philippines is down here, and these assholes claim all this right here is their territory. That's expansionism. Okay, the Russians went to Ukraine as a blocking move from NATO continuing to expand eastward. There was a reason behind it if you put yourself in the Russians' shoes. The Chinese, some jackwagon years ago, drew a fucking some dashes on a map, said this is our territory. And now they've been ruled against on the international stage, but they're still enforcing this little 9 dash line. How many fucking dashes they want to put on there today? It's the definition of expansionism. So now that they've asserted dominance over the entire South China Sea, building these artificial islands, now they're ramming ships of another country in that other country's waters. What is next for these motherfuckers? The Chinese Communist Party is not just going to stop there. Okay, these are just the first steps. Okay, to assert dominance over this main shipping corridor. It's about shipping and it's about the resources that are underneath those waves. Oil and gas, everything else. Taiwan, that's just an afterthought. This is about the shipping corridor and about money and the pride thing. The pride thing is big on the Taiwan issue. But who gives a shit about that worthless rock? Once they do that, if we allow them to do that, what's next? What's next? Now they control a huge part of shipping. They're mining the hell out of all the natural resources. They're just getting more and more and more powerful. Then what's next? What's to stop them from taking the first island chain to keep going? They have the personnel. They have the numbers of people. They have the discipline, and the people are programmed to a point they'll do anything the Chinese Communist Party tells them to do. To simplify what I'm saying is we need to stop this bullshit in the Ukraine, and we need to focus on the Chinese Communist Party, who are the world's true fucking enemies. That's my opinion right there. That's my opinion. If I were the president, every asset of the United States military would be focused right over here in the South China Sea, dealing with China. If you don't deal with them now, okay, this is my warning and my prediction, right? We could deal with them now. In 10 years, we will not be able to deal with them. In 20 years, we certainly will not be able to deal with them. They can build ships, aircraft, well, it may not be the best quality, better quality than the United States, but they can build this shit in mass much quicker than we can in the United States. And again, they have the people, and the people are programmed to do what the CCP tells them to do. So we've allowed them to get to this point so far. Just allowed them to do it. And we've funded it by pushing all our manufacturing to China. That's how they've risen up. Because we Americans are too lazy to, I'll say too lazy, not the average worker, but the people in the corporate boardrooms over the decades, figuring out how to make more money, more money, more money. Let's just ship everything to China, have it manufactured over there, ship it back. We make more money. And now it's created a culture where, we don't have the workforce that we used to. And the Chinese do. They're willing to work harder, longer hours, harsher conditions. And therefore, they can get things produced quicker. So, folks, if the United States and the world stage doesn't put the CCP in check, present day, in 10 years, you're not going to be able to. You're not going to be able to. And then that word expansionism, that's what's scary about the Chinese Communist Party. I don't think they're going to be happy once they really secure the South China Sea, take over Taiwan, I don't think they're going to be happy with that. Because if you have the power to keep expanding, why not? Who's going to oppose you? That's why I say they're the modern day Nazis. I just want to express my opinions. And again, it's therapy for me to talk to this camera, to talk to you, the viewer, through this camera, through the internet, through the technology. Just to say what's on my mind. Instead of going down here, there's never really bars around here, but if I were still drinking, go down and sit there in a bar. And of course, you're never supposed to talk politics in a bar, but people do. I just sit here and talk politics to you, the viewer. Do I have all the answers? No. And if somebody's knocking on my door, maybe they made me some pancakes. So this is the end of the political rant. Thanks for viewing. Thanks for listening. And may the good Lord help these educated fools in Washington, D.C. to stop making stupid decisions and push us into World War III. Amen.